Supporters of Israel rally for peace in Austin.
Daily violence, early elections for Prime Minister will be held for the state of Israel.
Hundreds of young people rallied at the Capitol building today. These young students are part of the group Members of Young Judea and are from all over Texas. They came to listen to several speakers and show their support for the people of Israel.
We're here today to support Israel and to support everything that's going on with the peace process and resolving these conflicts that are happening in the Middle East right now.
Many of the students came from a meeting at their camp over in Wimberley.
Supporters of Israel rallied for peace in Austin today. Hundreds of young people gathered at the Capitol building. These young students are part of the group Members of Young Judea and are from all over Texas. They come to show their support for Israel and its future.
We're looking for Arafat to stop the violence and as well for Israeli officials to get involved and do everything they can. And right now I think the Israeli government is supporting the peace process.
Earlier today, many of the students met at a camp in Wimberley.
Well, President Clinton is closely monitoring developments in a new high-level Israeli-Palestinian peace talk. An official says that the president wants to see what role he might play in encouraging movement toward peace. Today, hundreds of Israeli supporters were in Austin trying to appeal to the man who will likely continue the peace process, George W. Bush.
We've come to Austin, Texas, the former seat of power of our next president, 6 days before George Bush takes office, to urge him to increase support for Israel.
From Pennsylvania to Miami, hundreds gathered on the steps of the Texas Capitol to ensure their message is heard by the president-elect.
We want what Israel wants. We want the killing to end.
For months, gun battles and violence have ravaged the Middle East, much of it playing out while cameras are rolling. A 12-year-old Palestinian boy is killed in the chaos as his father tries to shield him, while the streets in Israel burn. Each side blames the other for holding up the peace process.
It's hard because we don't know who to believe and we don't know who's telling the truth in this situation, and so we're trying to find the truth, and that's what this is about.
Make no mistake, their allegiance is with Israel, and as the clock ticks on a Clinton-brokered peace deal, Jewish youth are trying to rally President-elect Bush's support for Israel.
If these young people get their messages across, there's a lot more of a chance that these negotiations will continue, will be taken seriously, and if we don't have a peace in the next week, we want the road to peace to continue, and we want the new president to be actively involved.
A spokesperson from the local Islamic Center said Muslims were supportive of George W. Bush in the election, but they don't expect anything in return. They only hope he will conduct policy in the Middle East in America's best interest rather than political reasons, which they feel will benefit Muslims around the world.
The passion in their voices spoke volumes about their belief. They want to end violence in the Middle East. Hundreds of Jewish high school students gathered on the Capitol steps Sunday to show their support for Israel. These students were from all over the state and from around the country. Their message was simple.
We're people. We're Americans and we're Jews. All of those things require us to not want violence. Nobody wants death. Nobody wants murder. Of course, I mourn when a Palestinian child is killed. I would mourn him like I would any other. But we do recognize where the blame is to come.
Students say this is not the time to place blame, but rather to move forward. This is the first such rally to be held in Austin. Similar demonstrations have taken place in New York and in Washington, D.C.